And we're back for another great episode of Savoir Brooklyn, the podcast that teaches you all about all things Brooklyn. It's Women's History Month, so I figured it'd be very important to highlight prominent women in our community. Even if they're not from the Brooklyn, they're from our enemy borough, but does a lot of great things in Brooklyn. So why don't you please introduce yourself, Dean Howard, to the viewers and let them know who you are.
All right, so I am Assuanta Howard, and I am from the Boogie Down Bronx. He is correct. He is very, very correct. You know, from the Bronx, at least back in the days, we never went to Brooklyn because you know your reputation. Let's not say it or what Brooklyn is known
Trees
for.
grow in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I know.
It's not 420 yet.
And what about them stick-up kids? And we ain't talking about them, huh?
I don't know.
After your time? Okay.
Yeah, that was pre-bike lane,
oh, goodness. It's crazy now.
pre all those restaurants that you gave a lot of money to, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But the Brooklyn I know now is brunches, parks, zoos, and lattes.
It's actually really nice to see because you're right about the trees. What I've always admired about Brooklyn is the brownstones. Because in the Bronx, we have brownstones, but it's not like Brooklyn. Brooklyn brownstones to me are just absolutely, beautiful. If I wanted to live in the city, nah, I probably wouldn't live in Brooklyn. I'm just kidding. But anyway, my background is adult education. I've been in adult education within the CUNY system, City University of New York, for over 20 years. We're probably talking almost 30 because my youngest is 30 years old. Nice. And I started with literacy, teaching people how to read and write, understand and know the alphabet and things of that nature. And then eventually, began leading programs, welfare to work. They were called welfare to work programs or workforce development programs. So I've worked at Bronx Community College as my first, Hostos Community College, the Office of Academic Affairs, City College, and then I'm here at LaGuardia Community College for the last 13 years. And, with that experience, I've elevated, to, Assistant Dean of Business Services and Workforce Development.
Nice.
So all of that is really nice. And what's funny is when I started here almost 13 years ago, my mentor, and I will mention her, Jane McKillop, she told me, in a couple of years, you'll be, you could be dean. She was a mentor because she would help me, see what I didn't think I would see. And Cocky was my middle name. I was like, nah, I'm not going to wait that long to be a dean. And Jane, look at this. I am. So my passion has always been teaching adults. The purpose is for people to be self-sufficient, whether that's through, and you become self-sufficient when you understand and you know how to read, right? And you understand how to navigate the world. But at the same token, entrepreneurship has always been underneath that. I've always, wanted to own a business, didn't know what type of business, I would own, but it was something that I always wanted to do. And my uncle, he told me, he said at 13 years old, 12 or 13 years old, and they're in South Carolina, he said, you always wanted to, own a business. He said, you wanted to own a cleaning service. I was like, I said that, right? And so dope. For this to, to happen in the way that it's happened is just remarkable. And I owe it all to God, right? We make plans and he smiles, right? And that has been, my life.
Wow, that's incredible. You touched on a few different questions all at the same time. So your background, you mentioned that you're a family from the South.
Yes.
Is your background, I don't want to say regular black, is it like African American? Is it Southern? Is it?
So, regular black is African American Southern.
Okay.
Right. With Ancestry.com, even though we know most people from the South will say they have, Native American,
right.
In them. And Ancestry.com definitely showed that we have Cherokee,
right.
Or never, Native American in us, but most people can see it anyway, from the high cheekbones to what they would say, almond-shaped, eyes. But yeah, my family is from the South, Charleston, South Carolina, more specifically James Island.
Okay. Is James Island where the Gullah folks are, or is it somewhere different?
So they call them Geechee. So
Geechee.
Geechee. So Gullah, I think, is more Savannah-like.
Okay.
Near this. But yeah, Gullah, Geechee.
Nice. No, that's interesting because I have family from North Augusta, South Carolina,
Okay.
and a lot of people in my family came up, and they in the 50s and 60s. Some came back from the war. I think it was like they came back from like either in the 40s they were in World War II, or in the 50s they were in the Korean War. But they came back and all got city jobs, so they all were like some of the first transit workers, first guys in correction and things like that. And they all, back then with those jobs, you can get a house and you can get different things. Now with that, you might be able to get like a sandwich, like a carton of eggs or something like
Right.
that. But it's very interesting to hear that a commonality often is like having roots in the South and probably seeing entrepreneurship and being in a neighborhood probably where everything was black owned in the neighborhood. And then you come up here, it's like even if you're in a black neighborhood, most of the businesses in these neighborhoods up until recently, as far as I can remember, were not really black owned. I think you might have had like a fish and chip spot, or you might have had like a daycare center or a hair salon or a barber shop. But everything else, like the shoe guy was typically like Eastern European. The butcher was, Eastern European. The cleaners were typically Asian, right? Like most of the businesses in our neighborhoods typically are not owned by us.
Right.
So going to your current role, what are some of the programs that you currently oversee in your current role?
Okay, so it's a lot. So the first one is, and which is what got me back to New York, because I lived in Georgia for about 7 years, is the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. But as the Dean of Business Services, it's the Small Business Development Center, it's New York Designs, which is an incubator, Small Business Transportation Resource Assistance Center, and PTAC, which is formerly known as PTAC, is now Apex. So those are the business services that I oversee. And then the workforce development piece is the Career and Technical Assistance Center. Let's see.
Is APEC the one from the train, where it's like trade school or something different?
No,
Okay.
it was the Procurement Technical Assistance Center.
Got
But
it.
they just recently renamed them to Apex,
Got it.
and that is helping businesses get government contracts. And we're pretty, big with that. Workforce development includes workforce development, career and professional training, and contract training. Kind of fall under that umbrella. With providing workforce development training for people to improve their lives, again, to be self-sufficient.
That's really incredible.
Oh, I can't forget Summer Youth Employment Program.
Summer Yummy. Shout out to SYE.
Sorry, Claudia.
Summer
I'm
Yummy.
I'm sorry.
Summer Yummy.
Because they kind of fall with workforce development, but they're really under business services. So sometimes I don't think of them as I'm thinking about the list of programs, because they're kind of like a standalone. But it's Summer Youth Employment too.
Please pray for everyone in the Bronx who has to walk to DeWitt Clinton or some really tough school to get their check. I don't know if they still have to get checks in person, but back in the day, you had to go to a school in person to get your check. So I don't know if that's still the case, but I pray for all the souls in the Bronx if they have to go to like a DeWitt Clinton or a Taft to get their check, and there's all these toughs walking around patrolling trying to take their Metro cards and their
Well, I heard they
checks.
did that in Brooklyn.
No, it did happen in Brooklyn too. It did. It's a fact. It's a fact. I've seen it.
See, I don't know. So I said I'm from the Bronx, but I didn't tell you where in the Bronx I'm from.
Are you from Riverdale?
Co-op City, which is
Okay. Co-op. So I have family in Co-op, and as a city traveler, Aunt Shirley, shout out to Aunt Shirley, she lives in Co-op now, but she used to live off of the 5 train to Gun Hill Road. I used to take the 4 train to the 2 train, the 2 to East 180, and then wait for the 5 train that would take forever to come because it was like a shuttle. Take that to East Gun Hill Road, walk past all the toughs, walk all the way to a house. But her deviled eggs, like you could package those up and Cellos with Aunt Patty's pies, like them devil eggs, everything. She's in co-op now, so I think now she takes the 6 train to Pelham Bay Park.
Pelham. Oh my goodness, you're not from the Bronx.
No, I'm not, clearly. Pelham
Pelham.
Bay Park.
Pelham.
And my pops worked on the 6 train, so so he used to be a conductor on the 6 train. I would ride the train with him a few times, and when you come out of, first of all, when you leave 86th Street, it gets different.
Yes.
125th Street, it gets different.
Yes.
It's like zombie land over there.
Yeah.
And then when you get to East 138th to like Parkchester, it's just like very
Different.
very aggressive. Then by the time you get to Zarega, it calms down. Then it's Pelham Bay Park.
Yeah. Different. Yeah. Mostly Italian back then. I don't know about now.
I don't know. But Co-op City now has gotten not as nice as it was.
Yeah.
But I did hear that the Bronx does have nice parts like Country Club, Riverdale.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Like
Well, Pelham
Arthur
Bay Park,
Avenue, where the restaurants are.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been in the. Well, my parents are still in the Bronx, but I left the city for a reason. So all those trains that you're talking about and bus, we don't do that anymore. I'm sorry.
No, listen, I hate the last time I had my loving wife at a Yankee game. I'm a Mets fan, but I had free Yankee tickets, and when coming home, we had the 4 train waiting for the train home. And some guy with fuzzy braids and his wife tried to accost us.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it didn't really go nowhere. I had to let them know that it was not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, you're from Brooklyn, right?
Right. Yeah, but it's just also like, I'm a man like you, so you're not.
right.
Anywho.
Yeah. No, I
Totally different
hear
day.
you. That's why this Lyft and Uber and
Shout out to Lyft.
having your own business and writing it off.
Yes. So, on the entrepreneurship conversation, what was your first business?
So my first business was AC. I was married at the time. AC Consulting Services, and as I mentioned, I worked in welfare to work type programs. So that's helping people with their resumes and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I wanted to do that for people who wanted to be who wanted to change careers. But I realized that I didn't have the patience really, for that. But I'm certified in Myers-Briggs type indicator. I enjoyed doing it, but that one-on-one and people not really, I said I was cocky, right? And people really not knowing what they wanted to do, who I'd seen them as professionals, and it could have been I was just too close to it. So that was my first official business, which when I went to get, my house actually during the pandemic, they do a background, right? And that came up. I was like, dang, I forgot all about that because I also took that to Georgia and I did, do some consulting there. So that was the first official business on paper.
And how old were you when you started that business?
Oh gosh. I mean, I'm 55 now. Why are you asking me to
No,
remember?
I don't ask. I'll never ask a woman their age.
I don't mind saying
Yeah.
it. I don't mind.
I just wanted for context to show people that you can start a business at, 20
So I
or
must have
25
been,
or whatever.
yeah, my children were young. So,
and we'll edit out the age part.
Why?
If you want us to, we can edit it out.
I am proud to be 55 years
Okay.
old. Who's 55 and looks like this and has 2 grandchildren? Hey, I'm proud.
Nobody.
Proud, black and proud.
There you go. Black don't crack. Black don't crack.
No. I must have been, let's see, at least in my 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, 30s. Yeah, I was 30 years old. Because, it was always entrepreneurship is in my blood. I believe that it's in your blood, but I worked, and, the stuff that's not on paper is braiding hair, and getting paid for it,
That's also a good lesson, too. You're never too young or too old, and there's always, you can always start over, but you have to at least start, right? Like I think sometimes people get too scared away. There's too much. There's too many hurdles, especially in a place like New York. Filing an LLC, you have like a publication requirement, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these things can be time or cost prohibitive, but I tell people sometimes that the time is going to spend anyway, and you'll spend that money anyway as well. So you might as well invest in yourself and give yourself an opportunity to change your life and get some kind of financial freedom.
And I believe it's through self-employment because you can control that. With the pandemic, we've learned, right? People are like a quality of life. Like I don't have to spend an hour, to get to work. I don't have to take the train, right? I'm working from home, but then they had an opportunity to really, pay attention to what they really liked, which was being home with their family in most cases,
In most cases, that's
working,
true.
working on their passion. It's hard to do that when you're working 9 to 5 or, 7 to 3, things like that. So a lot of people are doing freelance work and able to survive, off of that. So I think it's, entrepreneurship, self-employment to me, it represents freedom, right? It's a level of freedom that I can't even explain, and that's what I'm, aiming for always.
Definitely. So how many businesses do you own currently?
So I currently own 2. I'm going to sell my hair company to my daughter because you can't just give. I'm going to she's going to, pay for it.
Are you selling man weaves too? Or is
Yes. Oh, yes. We can hook you up with some waves.
I get waves back? 360s.
Oh,
Whoa,
hey,
man.
I'll place an order.
Oh,
Let me
man.
pull out my phone, get on my WhatsApp.
So
Hey, I need this.
I need one of those, and then I need like the flat top with the part like Big Daddy Kane too.
I could do that too.
Perfect.
The
Perfect.
thing is, do you have a good barber?
Yes, I got a great barber.
Okay, so if you have a great barber, he's gonna hook you
Shout
up.
out to
No one's
Adrian
gonna even
Fandis.
know.
Shout out to Adrian Fandis, my barber.
Yes.
Cuts my son's hair as well.
Ask him if he
Neff,
wants to
shout out
learn
to
how
Neff
to
too.
do a man weaves.
He does them.
He does them. Okay,
Like I've
so how
seen
come you
people
haven't had it yet?
because I couldn't go home. Like the things I couldn't go home with it. I ain't worried about my wife as much as my daughter. Because my daughter would have been like, "Daddy, this morning you didn't have any hair, and now you have hair. Where'd you get that hair from? That's not your hair."
That's funny, really. I would probably crack up. But yes, so I have my publishing company, which I started in 2003,
Nice.
2004, and I still have it. Then I started, Cassini Beauty.
Yeah, shout all those names out. Put all those names of
Yeah,
these businesses
Cassini,
out there. Yeah.
beauty bundles, which I'm selling, and I just started a new one, which is Concoction by Assuanta,
Nice.
which is a body cream line, skincare line, all natural, that helps with, guess what? Let me tell you. Let's see if you can guess what it helps with, because that's my $1 million idea.
Sleep,
No. You can get that other stuff for sleep.
acne,
No.
heart disease,
No.
female problems.
Hot flashes, man.
Wow, yeah, that's a $1 million idea.
Hot flashes, man. I had them so bad. I'm like, whoo.
I would not have guessed that. I'd keep saying the wrong things. Indigestion, fingernails.
No, this is, and it, everything the hair, because I just, as a child, I played with dolls and loved, all things hair. Publishing, always a writer,
Nice.
And this concoction was developed because it's like the hot flashes came from nowhere. And I'm like, what in the world?
And what's the name of the publishing business?
Asta Publications.
As publications. So do you publish for others if folks
So
need something to publish?
it's a self-publishing company, so we provide services,
Gotcha.
right? And then we make sure that their books, if you want it, to be available on Amazon. So we're still
Perfect.
doing that. I have quite a few titles.
So we'll put all of the links in the YouTube description so folks can find your
Yeah.
businesses and
Yeah.
get what they need out of those businesses.
Yes.
And you say you're selling a business. So sometimes business owners, myself included, like there's like an emotional attachment to a business. So what goes into the thought process of selling a business? Like, is there a right time? Like, what was your thought process in saying, okay, I'm ready to sell this business, especially a hair business where right now, you got gray wigs, neon wigs, you got man weaves and all types of things like that.
Hilarious. So for me, the decision was because I was going to focus on concoction.
Gotcha.
Right. And so one thing that I've learned being a part of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Businesses program is to focus on one thing. And when I was passionate about the hair business, is doing well. But for this concoction, I know that it's going to do well because it really, really helped me. I'm not sitting here, sweating. My hair ain't, messed up because I've, sweated. It was to create a product for me. And when I was talking to my partner, right, I was like, gosh, and he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, oh gosh, it's hot flash. I'm not afraid to talk about it because, that's what I'm feeling. And I did some research because I'm all about natural,
Right.
right? And that's where I think that the Native American in me. You ask my children, they will tell you, mommy always came up with a concoction so that I can go to work. So if they have ringworms, I cure that,
Wow.
right? They'll tell you golden seal, golden seal, golden seal.
Shout out to Golden Steel. I had that a lot from Mama Love too growing up.
It works.
Yeah.
Myrrh, works because I didn't have time to take off. I didn't feel I had time to take off from work. I was grinding to make
Right.
sure that as a single parent, make sure that my children had what they needed and that they didn't miss anything. So being that I think it's, in me to come up with natural formulas. To me, to sit there and stir stuff up in a pot feels so natural.
Nice.
Right? And so with concoction, that's what I did. I researched and I said, okay, let's figure this out. And it took about a year to come up with the formula, that I, felt worked. They all worked, but it's not just about, the cooling down the private summers. It's about moisturizing your skin. Now, people think it's greasy. It's not greasy because it soaks into your skin. So that's my baby for now.
Nice. Shark Tank, come get her. And Sharks, give her, all the monies. O'Leary, Mark Cuban, Damon, Barbara, back the money truck up, please. Please do that. That's incredible. You did mention that you have a family. How do you balance your 9 to 5 with your businesses and still give your kids, well, they're grown now, you said, but, how'd you do it then when they were younger, and, like, how do you do it now?
So when they were younger, we what I used to do is I used to tell them, if mommy's coming home late, that means you're getting fast food tonight.
As a kid, that's lit. Okay, more White Castle, more McDonald's.
It was Chinese food because we lived in an Italian neighborhood, or pizza. That's your pick, right? And then the weekends, it was our time. And so I have daughters, and so the youngest is 30 and the oldest, I can't believe it, is 36. We just kind of made it work. My oldest is, was very, very responsible. So when, I had to stay late, she made sure that the youngest did her homework. The youngest didn't like to read at the time. But for us, it's like, okay, TV's off. We all had our books. At the time we would go to Barnes & Noble, pick out what you want. We would all spend that time reading together. So we just kind of made it, they're my children.
Right.
Even though they're adults, they are a reflection, of me. And of course, they're fathers, but they're mostly me, So they kind of, rock with my rhythm. 9 to 5, no. I'm here at 6 o'clock. I'm always 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm an early riser. I might go to bed a little early, but I have to get things done early. They're the same way. They didn't necessarily like it. Like, I like to be up early, but they have that habit. Children model what you do, period. You don't make no excuses. I might have been a little, my oldest would say, a little rough, but not so rough. Like, I didn't want them to cry. I was like, no, in this world, you got to be tough. You got to be tough as a single mother. Now I would probably not be so, that way because you're human, But back then it was like, we got to grind. And, they are so focused. They are so mature. The youngest, who is 30, people who are older than her act younger than her to me, because they have this, for me, it's work ethic and integrity. So now they're out the house, right? So I forgot what syndrome they call it. Empty nest.
Empty nest, yeah.
So empty nest syndrome, I got me a big ass dog, a Cane Corso. So that
A Corso, yeah, like that Corso dog. Is that the one that will bite a hole in your quad the size of?
They can, but
Okay.
the sweetest. Macy's was the sweetest thing, and I lived in Brooklyn at the time, and I, walked with her and was wondering, why people wanted to cross the street, but that's all right. So I balanced it.
Where in Brooklyn did you live?
I lived in, I think it was Bed-Stuy, and what was the other place?
Crown Heights.
No, I think it was Bushwick.
Okay.
Bushwick made me move back to Rockland County.
You probably moved to Bush, like that's probably Bushwick pre-bike lane, because now it's hipsters, flannel, and decent coffee in some
Yeah,
places.
it definitely was no back bike lanes, and I couldn't take it. I went to Rockland, which I where I raised my children, because I saw rats.
Yeah, that's
You
Bushwick.
know, and I was like, okay, we're not doing this rat jumping from garbage to garbage. And then businesses. The businesses really kind of replaced, them now. It's a little more balanced because I have someone special who makes sure I don't work
Nice.
on the weekend.
Does your dog bite?
I don't have her anymore. I had to.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I asked that because Kevin Hart, one of the best comedians of our generation, just did an interview, and he's like, oh, he has like some giant dog, like a Shar-Pei mixed with something else, and he's like, people ask,
Yes.
does the dog bite? He's
Yes.
like, not me.
Yeah, they bite. Yeah, they bite.
I've been
They have
told
teeth.
Shar-Peis don't really bite people, but they will attack the hell out of a Rottweiler, a pit, or whatever else.
I mean, I've had big dogs. I've had a Cane Corso. My first dog was a Rottweiler. Love it. Right. I used to walk, at heels with my Roddy.
I'm crossing the street when I see those, and dog owners get mad when you cross the street. Like I had this lady who had like these two big pits. I'm walking with my daughter, and I cross the street. She's like, "Why you cross the street?" I said, "Cause you have that giant ass dog."
Yeah.
Like,
And you
so
can't
dogs,
predict
plural.
them,
Yeah.
right? I mean, for me, they're my baby. But if they feel insecure, about their surroundings or the people, because they can read people, right? So if something's off about you, they just might bite you.
I've been bit on my knuckle
Oh,
right
so
here
something's
by
up.
a pit bull.
Oh well, I don't know about pets. So much. Well, what did you do to it?
I was told to feed the dogs. I'm like, oh, okay. And the dog's
Oh.
name was Vader. I'm a Star Wars fan, so I'm like, hey, I am your father. It's like, "Arr!"
Oh yeah.
So
Some dogs do that. Yeah, some dogs, when it comes to they have that food aggression, right? So they don't. You have to kind of like.
that's what I was told. It's like, no, when I said feed it, I meant to like hand it to it. Don't like feed it. So I was
You
like,
actually tried to feed him with your.
I was like, yo,
hands.
here, buddy. He's like, "Arr!"
Oh, he's like he don't know what you doing with that hand. He figured the hand was something for him to eat. That's
Nah.
what it was.
And it was like a small, probably like a puppy, like no more than 10 pounds.
Oh, okay. So he was doing what he was supposed to do.
Wow,
Sorry.
but my knuckle didn't. I don't know, my knuckle felt different. So what has been a high and a low in your entrepreneurial journey? Like one high point where you were like, wow, this is amazing, and one low point where you were like, oh my gosh, this sucks.
So high point, for me is just starting, right? And I think that comes, from my background in education and in being responsible for, creating programs. So that I can do. So I can create businesses. Entrepreneurs have a ton of ideas, right? And so that's a high for me to be able to sit there and talk all day about, oh, let's do this side, let's just do that. The low point it was for me was when I was in Georgia, and then there was a recession, and I didn't, I wasn't a business person, so I didn't only thing I recognized with the phone was not ringing as much, and I'm like, oh, I got this house, at that time I wasn't working, at the college. I had left the college to focus on the business full time, and I'm like, okay, these bills are gonna have to get paid. How am I gonna, make it work? And that's when I, did the book tours on military bases. Just
Nice.
to make sure, that we were able to keep the lights on. So that was probably the lowest, point, for me is looking at it and saying, what's going on with the economy? Now I know, better with, Goldman program and just in life in general, how to do things a little differently.
Perfect. And we mentioned the Goldman program a few times. Let's talk about that a bit. So what exactly does that entail? And if I'm a startup or like a rising entrepreneur in Brooklyn or beyond, what are the benefits and how do I get into the program?
Okay, if you're a startup, you wouldn't be coming to the Goldman
Okay.
program, right? Because you have to be in business already. What I would recommend, though, if you wanted to start a business, is to reach out to your local small business development center. They helped me with ASA Publications in Georgia as far as business plans, projections, and things like that. And all of that costs nothing. So I advise anyone interested in starting a business, one, start, reach out to your, small business development center in your community. If you are at the stage where you're growing, early stage growing, then you could apply to the Goldman Sachs, program. And really what it does is it teaches you how to not work in your business and to work on your business. One thing about entrepreneurs, we know what we're doing and we like all of that stuff. But if you're really looking to grow and to scale, you have to learn to step away and strategize and think of new opportunities that's going to help your business going. What we found that businesses who have gone through the Goldman program, especially during the pandemic, they were able to pivot pretty quickly. Right. I'll give you an example, of one, and this is a business owner in Brooklyn, has a hair salon. When she came in, she had a certain number. She now has 5, maybe 6. Michaela, please forgive me if I got it wrong. But she was able, because people couldn't come into the salon. She was like, you know what, skip that. We're gonna, our folks come in, for treatment or they come in for coloring. We're gonna create these kits and mail it out. She created her online presence and was able to
Nice.
keep it going. So it teaches you how to look at opportunities, really understand, because not every idea is a business opportunity. We have ideas all day long, but how do you vet and understand the business one, right? What is the one that's going to bring you income? So
Actually, that's a great segue into the pandemic and how has that shifted the landscape? Has it created more opportunity? And if so, where do you think those opportunities are?
well, whenever there's chaos, there's opportunities, right? Because a business is solving a problem,
Right.
right? And so the pandemic had a ton of problems, right? So whatever the problem is and that's where it's identifying that opportunity. What needs to be solved? And then as the person who's starting a business or is expounding upon their business, okay, what business problem am I solving? In the case of the hair salon, these folks were coming in for hair coloring every 2 weeks, let's say, right? Now they can't come in. They're
Right.
not going to want to go, they can't go to the Rite Aid or or CVS to get a color if they were getting a color, professionally done for them, a color that matched them, right? And so she solved that problem by, okay, guess what? You can't come in, but we're still here, right? And so we're going to have these kits specifically, for you. So that's what the pandemic has done. It's created, opportunities. If I look at the educational system, CUNY didn't do online classes, really. You might have had a few hybrid, but we had to completely shift from offering classes in person to online.
Right.
So it changed the dynamics a little bit. So opportunities are everywhere. You just have to look for the problems that you want to solve.
I think that answers the last question I was going to ask was, how do you, like, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur that's looking to get their feet wet? But it sounds like you kind of answered that in that look for a problem to solve. Is that like the best place you think to start?
It's to start, and also passion. I think it starts with passion, right? It starts with a need. I mentioned my business with the new one, the concoction. I had a problem. I'm like, I'm not going to be sitting here sweating for no reason and
Right.
just feeling, it's an uncomfortable feeling. So it's looking at what you like, it's looking at, just sitting back. Okay, what problem? What am I hearing people talking about? There's in Rockland. I don't know if it's in the city. It's the app. I guess it's called Citizens app
Yeah.
here. Well, we have a next door, right? There,
I had to disable that app because it makes you think like the world's ending tomorrow. It's like person shot, fire, car accident. Like,
right, but do you have a next door or a neighborhood? Whatever it is, people are talking about problems, all the time. Like, I was looking at, it was on there, occasionally, I'll look at it, and they were saying, well, where are the self-serve car washes, right? Because you have a new car or you have a car, and you take it to some of these what they call brushless, and they're not
Yeah.
really brushless, and it just messes up your car. But what happened to the self-serve where you're just putting some water and some soap?
Right.
That's a problem,
Yeah.
right? And if you pay attention and you keep looking, and again, you just don't take that. You have to then do your due diligence and say, okay, who else is having this issue,
Right.
right? Before you invest your money, into it. So yeah, it's looking at every opportunity to learn about where the problems are, whether it's the newspaper, digital newspaper, whether it's social media, whether it's these, different apps, talking to people. Yep.
Absolutely. That was a lot of information. And I think it's well received. Thanks for sharing that. We have a final segment, which is going to be some rapid fire questions. No, these are more lighthearted. It's not, all the nitty gritty business stuff. All right. What was your first car?
Let's see. I think it was my first car. This car, I can't remember, Chevy Tracker.
Okay. What color?
I think it was blue.
Okay. Chevy Tracker. I gotta look that one up.
Yeah.
What's
My
your
first SUV, yep.
What's your current car?
Do you really want to know?
Uh-oh. It sounds like it might be like a Lambo truck or like an Aston Martin or something like that.
Well, it's an X5.
Okay. That's
2023.
Nice. Oh, okay. Oh, that's the one when I pulled into the parking lot. It was right there, shiny white. Okay, yeah. I was like, wow. Okay. Okay.
I am a BMW fanatic. I'll tell you a quick story. I was working at Bronx Community College, again, single parent, and my father is something else. Okay, I'll just say Douglas Howard is something else. We go to the car dealership, needed a car, and, I'm just looking at cars, and I see this BMW. Again, I didn't know much about it, but I just liked the fact that back then, I liked that they had individual, what do you call it? Oh my goodness. Whatever it is, individual lights. That's what it was. It was separate, and I was like, "Oh, this is
Oh, like the
spiffy."
bug eyes in the front?
Yeah, I really, I just like that, right? But I said, I can never, own that. My father said, "Go ahead, try. It's only money." That's his favorite line. It's only money. And when I was approved for it, I really liked how it felt, and so from then, I've owned quite a few, of them, and this last one. It was a gift, to myself,
Nice.
and
Treat yourself.
I treated myself, and I did something I have never done with all the businesses that I have is I put it in my company name.
Nice.
So that made it make sense.
I was going to ask about that.
That made it make sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten a 20. The last time I had I've had a couple of new cars, but I had to think about it I think this is probably the third one. And I made the conscious decision that if I could not put it in my company name, I wouldn't be getting it because I can write it off.
So that's another lesson. I think a lot of times when you go on the internet, people are selling information, right? Like everything is, get this course and in some situations that makes sense, right? Because I think in some situations the game is to be sold, not told, right?
Yeah.
But I do think in situations like that kind of transparency is important because I think right now I do see a lot of people saying, oh, don't get luxurious items, it's a recession, this and the third. But I think if you make it make business sense,
It has to make
as
business
you
sense.
did, then it's okay to treat yourself, right? Like most people I know that drive luxury cars have them in the name of a business. I don't think I know anyone over the age of 25 that drives a luxury car. I don't know if Teslas are like luxury, but from Tesla all the way to Aston Martin, none of those are in their name.
Correct.
And that's...
And no one tells you that. No one really tells you, to be strategic about that.
All we hear on the rap songs is I got my pink slips and all that kind of stuff instead of, actually in the songs is the opposite. These cars ain't leased and this and the third. And I'm like, actually, unless you get something that you're going to keep forever or you get like a classic car that
Yeah.
actually appreciates over time, value wise, then it doesn't make sense to necessarily,
No.
buy the cars outright unless you are keeping that car forever.
Correct. Same with housing,
Right.
right? Sometimes it makes sense to buy it outright if it's within that range where you can afford to do so, and you put money in it so that way you get quick equity,
Right.
right? And so everything, that you do, especially if you're going to be a business owner, you have to take the time to make sure that it makes good business sense, and that it's not taking away from your bottom line and your financial goals, for your company. Companies are also made to be sold.
Right.
People, acquire businesses to add on to their portfolio that makes them a larger company, but they're also buying what? Assets, of that company. It could be a list of names, it could just be the history, of a business. It should always make business sense. A business, you are in business to make money, you're in business to solve a problem.
Love that. Love that. We got a few more of these rapid fire questions. You kind of answered this already, but sitting in traffic or taking the train if it could get you to work faster.
Traffic.
So that 684 traffic or what is that? I-87 traffic?
No, I take the Palisades, go
Okay.
over the George Washington Bridge. So it's really the traffic from New York City, and I go through. So it's the Harlem River Drive traffic,
Okay.
FDR traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But I
beastie in
can
the
be in
morning.
meetings. I can catch up. On phone calls. Because they come through the phone. The phone call comes through the call.
Bluetooth right there. There
Yeah.
you go. And is there a preferred industry that you prefer to operate in terms of small businesses, whether it be hospitality, wellness, cosmetics, healthcare?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's two. One is helping people, those industries, right? Because it could be, I may own a restaurant, one day, or a food truck. I like to cook and can cook well, right? So I might tap into that. So I'm all of my businesses tap into what I like.
Nice.
That's not the rubric for everyone, right? For them, it's about making money, making sure that I'm getting a return on my investment. But my rubric is what I like.
Perfect. Last one. It's a tough one. City Island or a fancy restaurant? A City Island, seafood spot or like a super fancy Michelin star restaurant? Being that you're from the Bronx and all that, I know.
I'm gonna have to say City Island. We always go to City Island, and I haven't been to. At least I don't think I've been to a Michelin, restaurant. I mean, I like food,
Right.
So City Island, because that's an easy one, because that's what I know. But I'm definitely not opposed to, as long as the food is good and the service is good, I'm good. But I prefer my own, really.
Gotcha. So, any security companies listening, we're going to hire you to take care of her because she's a national treasure. We got to protect her. City Island, especially in the summertime, folks get them, I think they call henny coladas in them and they start acting a
Oh, that's
fool over there.
like my favorite.
So we got to protect you from the henny coladas and from those who can't handle the henny coladas. No, but I've seen all the YouTube videos of people fighting in A-ball jackets on City Island, and
But what time?
it was like Friday night.
Right, I won't be there. It's past my bedtime.
Friday night in the summertime. Thank you so much again for your time, Dean Howard. Really appreciate you making time on a busy day to talk to us and share your resources. We're gonna put the links for your programs in the description of the video. Any parting words for the people? We usually ask people to give a saying or anything that you live by. It could be a quote, anything else like that.
Become comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Love that.
That's like my favorite one. And, for anyone who wants to start a business, do it. Do it. And especially in New York, there's no excuse. There's so many free resources and so many people out there who can assist you and support you in starting your business. Business, I believe, entrepreneurship is the key to being free, to truly being free, because you're in control, of your destiny then.
Love that. Love that. Well, another episode of Savoir Brooklyn via the Bronx in this one. But thank you all for listening. Over and out.
Thank you.